Ahoy! See, I'm committed to this. All right. So my first job here at NSUC, when we joined 15 years ago, and I said, put me to work, was superintendent of juice. I was second in command of the 5 to 10-year-olds. I was sort of assistant to Joy Silver as she told her magnificent stories. And so my job was to keep the juice topped up for everybody and sort of shepherd kids to the bathroom if they needed to go. And felt I did my job pretty well. The other element of it, though, was that Joy and I tried to teach the kids a little bit about Unitarian history by introducing them to famous Unitarians throughout history who they could be inspired by and maybe sort of emulate later in their own life. And the kids would make up posters and little hats as a tribute to these great Unitarians. And there were a lot of fine candidates to choose from here. I mean, we have our martyrs and our abolitionists, and we have Nobel Prize-winning scientists. So I was a little surprised. I'm a little surprised still that the one that sticks in my mind is P.T. Barnum. Now, I think it sticks in my mind because it seemed like such an odd choice. So P.T. Barnum, does that name mean anything to some of you? It's a generational thing. So basically, P.T. Barnum was an advertising man, basically a huckster, who got his start promoting freak shows of misshapen humans that you could pay money to gawk at. And then he later put wild animals in cages, and you could pay money to ooh and ah at the wild animals in cages. Now, I guess it's true that Barnum did do some good things late in life. He gave away a chunk of his fortune, so that's a good thing to charity. But still, he seemed like an unlikely Unitarian poster boy. Heck, he seemed like an unlikely Unitarian. So when you think of P.T. Barnum, is there any particular quote that comes to mind? Maybe this one? Okay. So for a second there, when we were doing P.T. Barnum, I couldn't help wondering, and I would wager that some teeny part of every Unitarian wonders when they discover that not only was this gentleman on our team, but there seems to have been no effort to hide him in the cupboard, behind the baking soda. On the contrary, we spoke of him in hushed and reverent tones. And I wondered, is it possible, not probable, admittedly, but possible, like a non-zero chance, that this whole faith that we call Unitarian Universalism was one of his schemes? Like, did Unitarianism somehow get hijacked out from under the Transcendentalists so deftly and deviously that we failed to notice that it's all a ruse, and that the suckers P.T. was talking about are us? Okay, that is a cynical thought, and I want you to banish it right now. But it moves us in the direction we're going today with this service. How do we appraise the groups that we join? How important is their command structure or their financial transparency or their origin story? If the club or the religion that you belong to is making you happy and doing good in the world, does it even matter whether it grew out of an immaculate conception or a bar bet? All right. That's the cold open, and I usually come striding over to the podium at this point, but we had trouble with our roving mic, so we'll just pretend that I just came striding over the podium to usher in the new one. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to this North Shore Unitarian community where we take it as our mission to help one another live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. My name is Bruce Grierson, and for some reason I keep getting invited back to be part of your service team. We are a lay-led congregation, which means we don't have a settled minister. We don't even have an unsettled minister. What we have is a rotation of 5 committed congregants who distribute among them the load and really the privilege of bringing you these services. And thanks to you for continuing to show up and sometimes telling your friends, we can now say we are the largest lay-led UU congregation in Canada. This is an ethics-based faith tradition. We are hunters and gatherers of values, as Seamus Haney put it. He was talking about poets, not Unitarians, but I think there's some overlap there. We have no scripture, but we have 8 principles that we think distill some of the wisest counsel from the world's oldest literature, social codes, and faith traditions. The story of we hairless apes, the head and the heart of us, the aspirational best of us, guardrailed by the cautionary worst of us, no original sin in the picture, just growth if we choose it, together in community. This is the traditional land of the Coast Salish people that we gratefully meet on, and that too is part of our mandate. We strive for reconciliation and good relations going forward. So whoever you are, whatever brought you to our door this morning, we hope you feel welcome and rewarded for your brave choice to give us a try. Now, we always begin these services with some candle lighting, our chalice and 2 more candles. Chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and this morning it's my pleasure to welcome up Kay Fuller to do the honors. Okay, come on up and then we'll say nice things about you. All right. So Kay grew up on the Sunshine Coast, but not our Sunshine Coast, the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, Australia. Of 9 children, 9 free-range children, she says, 8 girls and 1 boy. Chaos was the operative word, says Kay. So Kay studied ballet and is mad about the arts. She came to Canada with her husband Bob in 1966, and in Vancouver she joined a modern dance company where she performed in original works choreographed by Paula Ross at the Arts Club Theatre and other venues around town. Very cool. Now, 2 children and 4 grandchildren later, and 14 years after the loss of her husband, but still with grandma strength, ask Kay about functional fitness sometime. And with Spanish under her belt so she can converse with her Colombian daughter-in-law, Kay has found her way to us. You came to our Deepening Connections workshop in the fall, and you were all in after that. And Kay, it's been our gain and our pleasure. We kindle this flame as the symbol of our gathering. All right. The next candle we light is our candle of joys and concerns.
Did I do the wrong one?
There you go. You can hover around behind me real carefully with that flame. Perfect. Yeah, all good. All good. All good. Functional strength. Here's a joy, and this one involves you, Kay. Can you light a candle of joy for yourself? Yes, you can. It's Kay's birthday on Wednesday, and it's a big round one, I believe. Astonishingly, you will be 85. Functional strength. Thank you. Now here's a joy that's been promoted to a joy from a sorrow last week. Janie is healing nicely from the burns on her face and hand and is back to work. She had a cooking accident, wok, oil, backsplash. Ouch. She thanks you for all your love and support and best wishes. I was going to mention the resiliency garden, but no. Jean says no. Next time. Any other joys? Anything anyone want to shout out? Anything that's lighting you up? Okay. Our final candle we do every week is the candle of global concerns. And this morning, for this one, I'm going to let it be represented by a minute of silence. So just let your thoughts and your heart go where they need to go, and I'll chime you out at the end. Okay, here we go. You want to stay up here with me for a bit? You could. Happy to have you as my wing. Never, ever leave your wingman. Okay, good. Oops. Okay, one day, when she was about 13, our oldest daughter, Maddie, came home and pronounced at the dinner table, "Religion is the source of all that's wrong with the world." And we're thinking, okay, think we might know where this is going. We had been coming here to North Shore Unitarian for 8 years or so at that point. We are Unitarian Universalists, and most people would describe UU as a religion, so we were part of all that's wrong with the world. And then Maddie delivered the coup de grace, the C word. I think we might be a cult. So apparently online, especially among some too cool for school teens, Unitarian Universalist is a bit of a punchline. It evokes a cartoonishly hippie do-gooder. So bleeding heart, they're bleeding out. Save the whales and pass the plate, and one more round of kumbaya with feeling, guys and gals and our non-binary pals. I'm going, okay, guilty, kind of. We are a little hippy-dippy, yes. But a cult? Come on. So, what does a good Unitarian do in the face of a broadside like that? If we claim to practice the intellectual humility we say is so important around here, we have to ask, is it possible she's right? How do we know we're not a cult? I mean, think of how this all must look to an outsider. We meet in this building in the woods. Looks like a church, but nobody seems to want to call it a church. It's a center, it's a forum, a circle, a haven, a fellowship. And they're going, why are these people not calling a spade here? What are they trying to hide? And then they see all these attractive people meeting them at the door. And what's that smell coming from downstairs? A hot meal, free for you, my visiting friend. Oh, and here's some literature if you're interested. And then they learn that the youth in this organization cement their allegiance to one another and to the mothership at these conferences, or cons, where there's a certain code of behavior called a covenant of all things. And there are certain rituals, and there's sleep deprivation, big time. And we know how that goes. Get an all-nighter or two under you, and you are just not in your right mind. You're fragile and vulnerable to these hippy-dippy messages of peace and love and respect. It's mind control, man. Isn't it? Okay. So now we're in it. Let's fly up to 30,000 feet for a second, define the terrain here. This word cult comes from the Latin cultus, for cultivate, like what you do for your garden. And in any group, what gets cultivated is that group's culture, its makeup, its vibe, its soil, if you will. All groups have their own microculture, certain shared values and shibboleths and assumptions about the way the world is or ought to be. It's just that in some groups, they're more obvious. When I was studying creative writing in the 1980s, I was in a cult. It was the cult of kitchen sink realism. That's what the writing style of the day was called. Raymond Carver was our patron saint. Everyone was using the same voice, the voice of the grizzled middle-aged alcoholic who's seen too much, even though we were just kids and we hadn't seen anything, because that's what you did to get an A. Meanwhile, across the hall in the English department, they were mired in post-structural theory, another cult. But when you think of it, when a group stakes a claim in their own little patch, that's just a sign that that group's trying to do something interesting. It's trying to attract you and light you up, which is the MO of any group worth belonging to. Any Swifties here? Oh, looking straight at Megan. So you're part of something bigger than yourself. Your leader is a little bit otherworldly. You'd sell a kidney to experience her live. You're spellbound by her lyrics, her confidence, her sass. It's life-changing, really. Anyone here have children or grandchildren who really got into Harry Potter? Remember how that went? Total commitment. The jargon, the backstories, the wizard logic. So if you ever met another Potterite, you could start on third base. No small talk. You're in deep right away. Because these are your people. And that the rest of the world doesn't get it, that isn't a problem. That's the point. My psychologist brother-in-law, who I've spoken of here before, used to lead a workshop for men, and it had kind of a Marvel Universe-ish name that sounded heroic, but also kind of a little bit fishy. And so on the first day, Dennis would get right out in front of it. He'd say, part of you may be wondering, is this a cult? I have two answers. No, it's not a cult, and yes, it's a cult, because in a sense, any organization is a cult. Every religion, every movement started as a cult in the eyes of the neighbors around, because here was this new paradigm threatening their views. Okay, so surely some of this is just fancy talk, right? There must be a difference between healthy groups and unhealthy ones. And it can't just be that healthy groups embrace true things and unhealthy groups embrace bogus things, because that's a subjective call, and it's impossible to make from inside the tent. Who was it who said, ideology is like breath. You can't smell your own. Anyone see the movie Captain Fantastic, starring Viggo Mortensen? Really great film that unfortunately, Deanna did. It flew under the radar. A lot of people missed it. Anyway, in this film, Viggo plays a father who finds himself the head of the family all by himself after his wife gets very sick and drops out of the picture. So dad's on his own, and he decides he's going to give his 5 kids the most pure and soulful upbringing he can. Job 1 is opting out of the toxic machine of consumer capitalism. He moves the whole brood off the grid and into the Oregon wilderness. The kids are homeschooled. Dad designed the curriculum himself, heavy on the classics. They live clean and lean, no burning carbon, no eating anything you didn't kill or grow yourself. And these are all such noble ideals that the kids think Dad is amazing. He's super dad, at least at first. And then things start getting more and more extreme. They all sleep in a communal teepee. There's no fun allowed if that fun smacks of anything commercial. They don't celebrate any holidays except one, Noam Chomsky's birthday. It's a good joke. So the kids aren't allowed any friends who can't meet the family standards, which means basically no friends. And eventually, the eldest son starts to smell a rat at his father's extremist orthodoxy, which you weren't allowed to challenge, by the way. He sees some cracks in Dad's vision, and maybe his character too. And so the mutiny begins. The problem is the kids can't leave. They're in the middle of nowhere, and Dad has the car keys. I remember hearing Viggo talk about why he found the role of the father in this film so delicious. He said the audience's journey is that you're made to question your own judgment. You had a solid stance on what's right and wrong, and now you're not so sure. And the thing about a cult is you can't be sure. Is this the best thing ever, or is it the beginning of big trouble? When I was writing the book U-Turn, which is about people who suddenly realize they've made a big mistake in their life and they reverse course, one of my star characters was a fellow who was a Scientologist. He'd risen up through the ranks. He got very high up, so high that he found himself with access to the private papers of the founder L. Ron Hubbard. And the scales fell from his eyes, and he started adding everything up, from the financial structure to the layers of secrecy to the psychological mechanisms that keep you doubling down on your commitment. And Jerry decided that, in his view, Scientology was not so much a religion as a cult. And he left. And he became an outspoken critic, one of the most prominent critics. There he is. I remember Jerry came to the book launch, so I was really hoping I did his story justice. Anyway, the leaving for Jerry was not easy, and it was punitive. The church went after him with a vengeance. And it's a wild story, and it really made me interested in this subject of cults. What are they actually, and how do they work? And how do you know if you're in one, and how do you get out if you decide you are? So I burrowed into the literature, and I soon encountered a gentleman named Steve Hassan, who is sometimes called the top exit counselor in the United States. There he is. And I asked Steve, how do cults work? How do they draw you in and convince you to stay? And he said, a cult's MO kind of goes like this. You put a person in a situation where their senses are overloaded with non-coherent information. They get confused and overwhelmed. Their critical faculties no longer work right. In this state, this individual is vulnerable to your message, and if you're lucky, you can capture them and command their loyalty. Now, Steve has 2 levels of authority on this, professional and personal. He's an academic, and it happened to him. So when Steve was young and traveling around, he ran into this will be a familiar story to some of you. He ran into some cheerful, attractive young people who persuaded him to come to a party. Turns out they were from the Unification Church. And Steve became a Moonie. And one of the conditions of membership was that you cut off all contact with your negative Nelly friends and family. You have a new family now. And as you can imagine, Steve's parents were freaking out. To them, it looked like their son had been abducted. My family was going, "Steve, it's a cult. You're being brainwashed," Steve told me. Well, I didn't feel brainwashed. He said, I was having a religious experience. How Steve broke free of the Moonies boils down to luck. He had an accident one day. He crashed the tractor, and he had to go to the hospital. And once on the outside, he finally had some perspective and a little time to think, and eventually that's what broke the trance. So Steve went on to get a PhD in counseling psychology, and he created a kind of checklist that's still widely used to recognize when you might have on your hands a case of authoritarian mind control, a cult. He called it the BITE model, B-I-T-E. So this is quite small print, so I'll summarize it. There are telltale signs of a cult, and you can group them into 4 categories: behavior, information, thought, and emotion. So, behavior, there are limits to what you can do or say. Information, you're basically fed propaganda, outside perspectives are blocked. Thought, groupthink is fostered, criticism is stifled. And emotion is the 4th one. Emotions are manipulated, creating dependency and loyalty through love bombing, guilt, and fear-based indoctrination. By the way, I know that some First Nations group used Steve's BITE model as a playbook for understanding what was inflicted on their ancestors and their elders. When you think about it, individual identity erased, new names assigned, your loved ones held at bay, and communication lines cut, your language is forbidden, records of what's going on are suppressed, etc., etc. I think it's fair to say from our vantage point now that was authoritarian mind control at scale. It takes generations to unwind that kind of thing. We're still in the process of coming to terms with it as a culture, as you know. Okay. So I think your mind is now racing ahead to my next question. How do we stack up on the BITE test? Okay. Well, admitting my own bias here, you can't smell your own breath, right? I think we come out pretty well. So B, behavior. Is there individual autonomy? Well, yes, our 4th principle exists to protect it. Mutual support for one another's unique spiritual path, our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Okay. I, information. Do we restrict access to outside perspectives? Pretty definitively not. We might, I would say, even go too far in the other direction. We speak so respectfully of other faiths that we sometimes lose people to the Buddhists down the road. I would say there's one exception that we need to be careful of, and that is openly dissing Christianity. Just by the by, I slide that in. T, for thought control. Well, freedom to reach your own conclusions, that's such an important pillar that we devote 2 principles to it, number 3 and 4. We raise our kids to question everything, and eventually, inevitably, that includes us. And that's awesome, though maybe not the best business model. E, emotion. Okay, emotion. There is admittedly some love bombing that goes on in here. But let's face it, we're not exactly wholly rolling in the aisles. I would say, if anything, we are under-indexed on emotion. I sometimes think that the whole project of Unitarianism is to teach people who are really smart but emotionally constipated to feel. We could use more goosebumps around here, not fewer. You know, I'm going to take that as a cue, talking about moving feeling in our bodies, because we've mixed up the order of things, and it's such a long time to sit. I'm going to suggest that if you're able, stand right now, and let's just have a little stretch. Let the whatever emotion you got move through your body. Just because you've been a good sport to sit through this slightly longer than usual reflection. This is my last one of the year, and I wanted to go out with a bang. Okay, so shake it out. Okay, and then we'll settle in for round 2 here. All right. Okay, so what else about cults, just factually? Well, they tend to be fairly short-lived. They appear on the landscape in a flash of utopian promise, but eventually a critical mass of people sees through them and they blow up. Unitarianism has been around for 500 years. I'd say that counts as the test of time. Cults are charismatic, brutish, and short. We are earnest, gentle, and long-lived. I'll take that. Cults also tend to have an authoritative top-down structure. That really doesn't fit for us, especially now. 5 of us who are just regular folks sharing the service duties between us, and if you don't like us, you get to vote us off the island at the AGM. And there's this. Cults are often a kind of honeypot. Honeypot. They're attractive on the surface, but it's a bit murky what they're actually all about. You don't get it until it's too late, and you find you've been snared. In fairness, this can happen to Unitarians too. So at Elliott last summer, that's for those who don't know, the Unitarian Family Camp in Seabeck, Washington, this fellow Ted Kay, who's a well-known Unitarian from Oregon, told a story one evening on the main deck of the conference center. He literally had a banjo on his knee, though he didn't come from Alabama. He came from Portland. Ted's a lifelong Unitarian. He literally grew up in the church, and now he's in his 70s. And someone asked him, Ted, how did your family find Unitarianism all those decades ago? And Ted said, well, it went like this. His mother was a Christian, but she was a restless Christian. And one day at church, she was discussing her faith with the minister. She had a lot of questions and reservations. And finally, the minister said to Ted's mother, you know, based on what you're telling me, I don't think you're a Christian. Go try the Unitarians down the road. And she did. And at this point, she had 2 children under 5. And the Unitarians said, welcome, come on in, you're in luck. There's an RE program, religious education program for the kiddos. Just one thing. We'd ask that you contribute to the juice fee. The juice fee. Okay. But, this Unitarian woman continued, considering it's the last service of the year, we'd ask that you pay the juice fee for the whole next quarter, just so we can budget, you know. The juice fee. Okay. Well, all right. So Ted's mom pays the juice fee. And then she attends the first ever Unitarian service, which is the last service of the year. It's okay. Not life-changing. It was a hassle with these kids getting them out of the house on a Sunday morning, so she decides, yeah, I'm probably one and done with the Unitarians. Over the summer break, she runs into that nice woman from the Unitarian Church. And Ted's mom figures she'd better be honest about her intentions here, that the family won't be continuing. Okay, no problem, the Unitarian woman says. Just so you know, though, we can't refund your juice fee. And Ted's mom's like, shoot, I guess we have to keep going. I paid the juice fee. That was 65 years ago. They're still Unitarian. Ted said, no one ever explained to my mother the sunk cost fallacy. I gotta say, one sign that you're probably not a cult is that people don't take themselves too seriously. Have you noticed that actual cults are kind of mirthless? What I'd say about Unitarians is they take the ideas seriously, they take the values seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. And to me, that's reassuring. And also, Makes it kind of somewhere you want to be on a Sunday rather than somewhere you feel like you kind of ought to be. Right? Here, in my opinion, is the best thing Unitarians do to ensure that we never, ever become a cult. So this faith tradition has a ritual for young people who are around 13 years old, a coming-of-age ritual, and it involves devoting a weekend to writing a credo, a personal statement of faith. So the kids read this book, To This I Give My Heart, which is put out by the UUA, and they do some of the exercises that are in it. And the book says to these kids, basically, here are the broad contours of what we believe as a group. This weekend is about articulating what you believe. Doesn't have to align perfectly. Honestly, it doesn't have to align at all. The important thing is that it's a very personal statement, as accurate as you can make it, of who you are and where you are right now in all your mighty 13-year-old wisdom. Why is this an important thing to do? Well, if you'll indulge me, one last story. During the Korean War, captured American GIs were subjected to what came to be known as brainwashing. It's the first time that term really was used. And the techniques that the Chinese Communist Party deployed on these soldiers were pretty interesting and psychologically sophisticated. So it started with the soldier being put alone in a room with interrogators. The soldier had to explain why he was American. Like, really get into the weeds. Why your belief in this system? What's the draw for you? The captors took careful notes, and then slowly and relentlessly they poked holes in the explanation. They held that belief system underwater until it leaked. For most of the GIs, this having to really explain their ideology was new to them. A lot had never given it much thought. I mean, their faith in America probably didn't go much deeper than, I believe in cheeseburgers and football and maybe God. It's a pretty thin credo. And it didn't stand up under the counterattack. Under relentless cross-examining, the soldiers started hedging, and then they started doubting, and finally they threw out their story, and they bought their captor's story, and they became duly re-educated, and they turned against their country. And you might think about this process, hey, that sounds uncomfortable, but I was actually expecting worse. I thought maybe brainwashing might be more like torture, like maybe it involved electrodes to your head or something more coercive like that. Well, the reason it wasn't more coercive is that coercive wouldn't have worked. Mao intuited that you couldn't force someone to become a Marxist. You couldn't force anyone to become anything they didn't want to be. And he's largely been proven right about that. You have to feel like it's your idea that you came up with yourself. These soldiers' captors made Marxism sound better than capitalism. They sold their story to the American soldiers better than the soldiers had sold their own story to themselves. Throughout life, whatever your belief system, someone's going to question it, and the only way it's going to hold up is if you questioned it first. When Unitarian kids embark on that credo writing exercise, the main message, and it's an amazing one, is, kid, you get to choose what you believe, nobody else. Now, there are some stars you can steer by. We have our 8 principles. Other faith traditions have their own moral codes and precepts, and there are some great role models around. That's another thing you get to choose, the kind of people you put yourself in the path of, the kind of community you commit to. But also know that whatever you choose to believe, it's not in stone. It's going to change, it's going to evolve, and it should. That's called growth. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Maddie no longer thinks we're a cult. That doesn't mean she's come running back into the fold in her 20s. It's pretty rare, actually, for you young adults to do that. For some of the reasons we talked about, there's a big wide world out there, and we've primed them to explore it. But her mom and I, we see her living her values, and they look very familiar. And that, to me, is what it's all about. At some level, what our kids believe and what we ourselves believe matters less than what we do. It's through our actions not our ideologies, that we reveal who we are. May it ever be so. We take a plate collection every month, and 100% of it goes to a local charity that a committee here deems to be a worthy enterprise and a good fit for our values. This month, that charity is Summer Empowerment Camps, 2-week day camps for girls and gender-diverse youth. This program is affiliated with the North Shore Women's Center, which continues to back inspiring and free and socially forward programs for young people on the North Shore. Please give as generously as you are able. The ushers, please come around. For your generosity, for all you give, for all you do, all the things you do that we don't even know about. Thank you. Announcements. There's more going on in this congregation at the moment than I can actually tell you about here, so I encourage you to check out your e-bulletin for a fuller report. But here are a few things to draw your attention to. So it is a Casserole Sunday. That means that what you're smelling, free food for you, coming from the basement. Right after this, suggested donation is $5. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. End of Life Matters at 12:30 today, so after lunch and a little bit, Wayne Hanna will host a discussion of things to think about as we head up the 18th fairway, or maybe we think about it a little bit sooner than that with any luck. Join Wayne in the sanctuary today after lunch for that discussion. Friday, Feb 13th, that's next Friday, the new board is inviting you to come and get to know them with a wine and cheese, and you can reacquaint yourself with some of the other people in the congregation that you don't know. They like to set it up, if the weather's good, like a little Parisian cafe outside, and it's very nice. I highly recommend you check that out. Here's another one to put on the calendar. Work party scheduled for June 14th. Do people need to bring their own tools? No.
If they have them, yeah.
If they have them, yes. If you want to bring snacks for the workers, that's good too. Main thing is to come. Next week looks really interesting. 3 important questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? Rebecca will be homing in on that first question, who am I? Which is in some ways it's the simplest of the 3, in that you can actually confidently take a stab at answering it, but in some ways it's also the most profound. And I think that is the end of our announcements for today, so we're going to wrap this up with an old favorite around here. Everybody knows it. See if you can sing it without the words, but the words will be here for you anyway. So today we've been talking about owning our beliefs, living deliberately, living with heart. Madeleine Tien, a talented Vancouver novelist, has been making the media rounds with her new book, and something she said feels like the right words to go out on. Her book features 3 characters who are actual historical figures. They're real people who make an appearance in her fictional story. Maddie chose them because they all share something. They were all, at one time or another in their life, beneficiaries of the kindness of strangers. They would not have survived without being continually saved, physically saved. Just when they needed it, they were given food or lodging or a job or an escape route. These strangers who offered those gifts are now lost to history, but they helped make history. Maddie says, now is the time to think about every decision we make. What to say, whose hand to take hold of, what choices we make, small and large. There is nothing that's inconsequential. There is nothing that's inconsequential. Let's hang on to that idea as we close up. We extinguish this flame. The world calls us to live with depth, meaning, and purpose. We go forth with courage and love. Thank you to everyone who made this service possible, tech, greeters, ushers, and especially you. I see some new faces here. Thank you for having the guts to give us a try. And just on a personal note, since it's my last service, I can't tell you what a privilege it is to be able to be part of this team and feel this every Sunday and feel what seems like a growing energy here. And I love you guys.